Hi guys, welcome to Threads Podcast, Life Unfiltered. Thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to record tonight. We are here with Megan DeWeerd.
Yes.
Okay.
People hesitate to say the weird part.
Well, I was typing the last name and I was like, is it two E's? That just looks weird.
It does.
But anyways, thanks so much for joining us. We're going to kind of talk tonight about I'm a Christian and social justice is important to me. So it should be an interesting topic.
Yes. And social justice, I found out when I came down to the basement, is a topic that perhaps could use some explanation as we get started. So not only will I introduce the concept of threads, but I'll also give you a little bit of a picture of what I have in mind for social justice as we start this conversation. In preparation for this episode, a working definition of social justice would be caring for the poor and disenfranchised, looking out for your neighbor, and not just being solely focused on yourself and on your needs. But it really comes down to the golden rule, treating others the way that you want to be treated. And that others category is very broad and would include those who you don't agree with. It would include those who live a different lifestyle than you. It would include those who live on the streets and do not have a home, those from broken families. Whatever the case may be, social justice, as we reference it on this episode tonight, is all of those things. Basically, seeing the quality of humanness in every person and seeing them as valuable. Mm-hmm. So that's the overarching theme of tonight's show.
Yeah, and just for clarification, I thought social justice was like, I'm a Christian, but I believe like gay and lesbian people should have the same rights and be able to get married. That's what I thought social justice, because I always hear like the social justice warrior. So that's what I thought it was. So I'm glad you explained that.
Yes. I mean, you're not wrong, because that's part of it. Social justice is justice and equal opportunity for all, including those who, subscribe to the gay or lesbian lifestyle. They deserve to be treated fairly as well.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's kind of the broad working definition that we'll take tonight. And if you're new to Threads, thanks for tuning in. This is a podcast all about life unfiltered. We just like to take the opportunity to sit down and have conversations about things that matter. And our goal in doing that is to kind of set an example for our viewers and listeners to follow as they have relationships in their lives. Mm-hmm. Megan and I were talking a little bit about, what's the point of Threads? And I said it this way. We live in a world that's so divisive and focuses so much on what separates us and what, whether it's Republican or Democrat, Michigan fan or Michigan State fan. Nobody likes the Detroit Lions, or so I'm told.
They're undefeated after game 2. So first game was a tie.
So I only watched like a quick snippet of the game. It was on after church today. We had a big men's event. So it was great.
You sound really excited about the Lions.
Yeah, well, see, that whole event was challenging for me because I am an introvert by nature. And so when there's an event and it's just a bunch of dudes eating meat and playing games and watching the Lions, I feel a little out of place. But I survived, and needless to say, I took a nice long nap afterwards because I talked to so many people and was drained. But
great.
I digress. So that's what Threads is all about. It's storylines and finding commonality and finding, those things that draw us together in a world that tries to tear us apart. So that's Threads. And tonight, Megan is here joining us. And I had the chance to meet Megan through an organization that we both serve on the board for, Urban Transformation Ministries. I've mentioned it on the podcast a few times, otherwise known as UTM. And UTM has a really interesting goal of, I want to get the mission statement right, but I don't have it memorized. So, But
I wish I could help you.
I know, right? I think we need to work on that.
Yeah, right.
But
you're both. Are you on the committee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you both don't know the mission statement?
Not by word. No, I think I should probably work on that.
Can you get the gist?
The gist of it is we want to, we primarily focus on the fatherless gap. Those kids that are growing up in an urban setting without a dad, without a father figure in their lives. Something that Todd Chance would be all about, I think.
Yeah.
Our previous guest. So UTM seeks to bridge that gap by providing mentor figures, by providing skills building opportunities, anything practical that we can do to fill that void and equip guys to be the dads that they're supposed to be. And then, of course, coming alongside the women in those communities as well, because that's the other half of the equation too. You can't just leave them out. So that's why I'm glad we have some females on the board as well. Because obviously a lot of the work we do is with the guys, but there's definitely a component that, we need to be reaching both sides.
Definitely.
So yeah, Megan and I met there, and I'll just kind of turn it over to you. I mean, just give us a little intro to who you are, what makes you tick, and I'm sure we'll come up with some questions to ask you as well.
I hope so.
All right. Thank you very much for having me. I think as far as Urban Transformation Ministries is concerned, urban hits me where I live, literally, and near the corner of Leonard and Alpine on the real west side.
Yes.
Not up the hill, we're down the hill.
What's there's a fake west side?
Well, we on the west side know ourselves as up the hill or down the hill, and there's a big difference.
Okay.
And,
Was that the hill with the cemetery?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So if you're up the hill, you're a little bit fancier than those of us trolls that are down the hill. And also, I've been there for almost 17 years. We're coming up on our 17-year anniversary of finding our house and moving in.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I also am like pre-revitalization West Side, which is another distinction that's increasingly becoming more definitive. So urban and then transformation is something that I have experienced in life and feel passionate about. Absolutely. I was reading Dallas Willard on transformation, and he says, everybody, doesn't matter where you're coming from, who you are, we all believe in the process or the possibility of transformation, from Oprah to the Dalai Lama, that we all feel that transformation is possible and we yearn for it and we strive towards it. So, so that is what brought me to Urban Transformation Ministries, and really undergirds my thoughts and feelings on social justice as well. I also took the opportunity today to buff up on my definition of social justice.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear yours.
Sure. Well, I don't know about mine, but Oxford on Google said
Didn't you pull that up too?
Just to let you know, 5 minutes before you came, we were doing the same thing.
Okay, super. So you probably saw that justice is thought of in terms of the distribution or equal access to wealth, opportunities, and privileges within a society. So I think that we can think about justice in a broad sense, really, like you were saying, that the political agendas,
right,
in the kind of big view of social justice, and then we can look at it in the really in the neighborhood view of like, here's my neighbor and she doesn't have what she needs to feed her kid today. And that matters to me. So I would say I tend to live, in the neighborhood more than in the bigger scheme. Issues and politics really stress me out. So I'm guilty really of burying my head in the sand and a lot of those things, and, having to take a Facebook break every time things get really hot.
Yes.
But it does matter to me. Both matter to me. Where I live is human to human.
Okay.
So.
What about your family and your upbringing, and do you work and those kind of things?
Yeah. So, I kind of cringe when I say, sometimes when we're talking about social justice, I cringe when I say that my husband and I are landlords. We have rental properties, and that sometimes when you care about social justice and when you live in a community where housing is one of those big issues and a commodity that's hard to come by, especially for those who have fewer privileges or have I don't know, bad credit or evictions or whatever. Housing is kind of one of those big topics. And, so sometimes it feels a little funny to sit with that, to know that I've got a commodity that's in great demand, and yet, traditional ways of, screening or traditional ways of managing rental property can be very exclusive of the oppressed.
Yes.
So how do you handle that? I don't want to. I shouldn't have asked that.
No, that's okay. I think
I'm trying to get.
We're going to dive right in.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get a bio of her. And
Sorry,
I'm like,
okay.
how do you handle that?
I'll just back up a minute. I grew up in a small town 30 minutes south of here, and thought that I was kind of a small town girl. I fell in love at 15 and ended up marrying the guy at 19.
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah. And we're still married, but that is where I've experienced the transformation, and that's my transformation story. Let's see, we had kids, started having kids, when I was 21. So we have 4. One is, God, I'm going to say my age now. One is 14. Another just turned 13. I've got an 8-year-old and then a 6-year-old.
Okay.
And, so now Dan and I, my husband, started our, property management company. Well, we started managing for others in 2009, but we started investing when we first got married in 2002 and 2003. And so, so we've been doing that for a long time, and he primarily does that now. I finished a degree in psychology last year, and I'm kind of wondering what's next.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah.
That's awesome. One of the things that we talk about often on the show is mental health. Mm-hmm. And given your psychology background, just curious what role mental health counseling therapy plays in your life, or what role has it played in the past? If you don't feel comfortable answering on a podcast, that's fine too.
Oh no, I'm an open book. So I've had a wonderful therapist who has I just said to her, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, that I could probably benefit from meeting with her weekly forever. And so I was fortunate. I went to Moody Bible Institute just out of high school for 3 semesters. And my English teacher that I really love and respect, she just really, I love that she used her platform as an instructor to invest in people. And I think that college is such a transformative time, or a pivotal time in a person's life. So she just took advantage of that platform and encouraged all of us at some point in our lives or another to seek mental health care or counseling of some kind or another. So that, I think, in that time frame in Christian circles, I think we were more backwards than we are now on mental health. And so it really normalized the process of getting help, the idea that we are not islands, and that we benefit from various kinds of mentorship and assistance in life.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Jason and I have had extensive conversations on the podcast about therapy. One of the things that's kept coming up is the terminology. I am one, up until the podcast, I referred to it as counseling. Mm-hmm. I was going to see my counselor. And then on the last episode that we did with our families, Jason's wife, Megan, kind of figured me out. She's like, I think I know why you like to use that term, because it sounds a little bit more lighthearted than therapist.
Oh, interesting.
And I was like, I think you're right. Mm-hmm. It's a lot easier to say I'm going to go see my counselor and get some guidance than it is to say I'm going to go see my therapist and get put in my place because my mind ain't right.
Yeah.
So, what do you prefer when you speak of mental health? Is it counseling or is it therapy?
Yeah, great question. I use therapist, and part of that is that the woman that I see is a doctor.
Okay.
And boy, part of that's probably preference. I part of my story is going through a season of just allergy to anything that felt Christian-ese. It kind of made me break out in hives. And so I think counselor kind of has a little bit more Midwest Christian-ese sound to it.
Right.
Sorry, Ben.
No, I think that's where it came from.
Yeah, it could be. And I think maybe level of education of the care provider, and probably a little bit to their philosophical bent.
Yes.
The one that I see is psychodynamic in approach, and so that's a lot of like internal framework and a little less cognitive behavioral. So that's my guess.
That's exactly what we talked about in the last episode, because I was seeing CBT, which is cognitive behavioral.
Sure.
And it's good in the short term.
Yeah.
And it's good, quick fix.
Yeah.
Let's work on things.
For sure.
But we never really got to the deeper issue of, okay, well, what's causing you to have anxiety in the first place?
Oh, Ben, you're speaking my language. This is getting fun.
Yeah. So I've been working with a new therapist, and I'm calling him a therapist because of his approach.
Yep.
And it's been super intense, but really good.
Great.
Although the second session was just me talking, it felt like. And he just sat there and took notes.
Yes.
I'm like,
it's working.
What are you writing down? Like, I would love to know. Like, don't you have anything you want to add to this conversation? Or are you just going to make me sit here and keep talking?
Yeah.
But it's really helpful because as I'm talking, he's asking the right questions, and it's been really fun.
Great.
So
good for you.
Yeah, it's funny you guys know what kind of therapist you see, because I don't know what she does. I just go and
you just have to read her business card.
Right. I'm going to see her tomorrow. So, I don't know if she's CBT.
I don't think she is based on what you've said.
CBD or. You don't think she is?
That helps.
CBT, I don't think she is.
No.
No, I think she's probably psychoanalytical. I don't know.
Those are some big words.
They are. So, but, if it helps, awesome.
Who cares?
Keep doing it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I came to a point where the counselor, therapist, there I just did it again, would say things like, "You've made such great progress." And I'm thinking, maybe on the outside, but I still don't feel like I've really conquered anything.
That guy was a joke.
Kinda,
Sorry.
yeah.
Sorry. He was.
I mean, from his initial line to me, at first I thought it was really funny, but
Now you're like,
that should have been a red flag. So we sit down
Don't
for our
say
first session. I'm not going to say the word.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to get kicked off for profanity, but
That's good to know. No profanity.
Well, no. So iTunes is very stickler about that. If it's explicit, you have to mark all your episodes explicit.
Gotcha.
So
That's a lot of work.
we've only out of about over 120 probably episodes between the two podcasts, we only had one F word.
Wow.
So,
Nice.
saying shit or whatever, that's fine, but it's the F word that gets the flag.
All right. Good.
So-
I've cut back dramatically on my use. So.
Okay, good.
I think I've increased mine since I met Jason, but that's okay.
He always brings that up. I'm bringing more livelihood to your life.
Indeed. So we sit down for our first session, and first words out of his mouth, Benjamin, and that's another thing. He would always call me Benjamin, not Ben.
That's a pet peeve of Ben's.
Yes. At least he said it
blame you.
right.
Well, I say Benjamin when I'm mad at him.
That's true. But he said, Benjamin, men are effed up. But
Wow.
he used the actual word.
Wow.
And he's like, our work here is to, I think it was un-F.
Yeah, I think it was
Ourselves.
too.
Wow.
Yeah, like first visit.
That's an intro.
That's
Yeah.
like a year-long relationship. Then you use that.
Yeah. It felt very, it was jarring.
Yeah.
Because you don't expect that in that environment.
Okay, so I got to just dive in here
Yeah.
because
Go
this is
ahead.
such good stuff.
This is just kind of whatever. Just
Great.
go for it.
Okay, so I think one thing I find really fascinating, I love psychodynamic, and I really like action methods too. I've done a little bit with I can do this. Anyway, it's the acting one.
Okay.
Psychodrama. There it
There
is.
it is.
Psychodrama. Anyway, a little bit with psychodrama. Art therapy is the same thing where you get at the subconscious material a little faster. It's really efficient because you use these other methods they're just really good at unearthing subconscious material, which is then what you deal with in psychodynamic. One thing I wanted to say about psychodynamic, I thought that it was like, we're going to lift the house, rip out the bad foundation, build a new foundation, put the house back down, and we're going to be good to go. And, I've been disappointed to find that like the issues don't ever like totally evaporate or go away. You just kind of take another swipe at them every time they resurface. And, so I think that we're never going to be an effed up.
Yeah.
We're always going to be in recovery.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a good and beautiful thing to be in recovery. And my mom said one time, I was saying, you're doing a good job. And she was just in a part where her energy for renewal was flagging. And so I was encouraging her, and she said, well, it's either that or die trying. And I said, Mom, wait, that's the thing. Like, our goal is to die trying instead of to die not trying.
Yeah.
Right.
No kidding.
So I think, really, what you were saying, that you don't feel, uneffed up inside.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever do arrive.
Yeah.
But man, I think we can get to the point where it's like, oh, I know that this is my baggage, and I know how to deal with this, and I know how to recognize the signs that I'm having a flare up, and I know how to get myself out of it.
Yes.
And I know where it came from. Understanding our story and understanding our narrative is marvelous and critical in rewriting I guess redirecting our future. I think it's a gift that we give our kids.
Absolutely.
Super important.
It is.
How I think when it comes to social justice, however, I have found that the resources available to those with less means are going to be more empirically based resources. So that's going to be your cognitive behavioral. And you know what? Sometimes my doctors, I'm always with my physician saying, I want to understand why this is going on. I want to dig to the bottom of the problem and solve the problem at its roots. I don't want to just mask symptoms. And he sometimes will push back a little bit. He's always willing to go there, but he sometimes push back a little bit and say, but you have to be able to function enough to have the energy to dig to the root of the problem. So I think that sometimes the cognitive behavioral kind of therapy and the kinds of therapy that are available more readily to the general public are really good at helping you just feel better and function better and put one foot in front of the other. But man, would I love to see a more psychodynamic internal framework kind of therapy more readily available to the people I live by.
Yeah.
But don't you feel like they just need that Band-Aid because they're struggling with so much other stuff, and they're like, listen, I don't want to dig into this. I just need to keep going, because if I don't, my house is going to fall apart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You make a completely valid point.
Yeah.
And I mean, man, how often have I said, I'm so thankful that my husband and I mean, we spent days staring at the wall in the midst of the darkest hours of our lives. And we had the ability and privilege to do that without things falling apart. And I don't ever want to take that for granted or take it lightly or assume that everyone has the same ability or margin in life to deal at a really deep level.
Yeah. And I think too with CBT, for me, it led me to a place where I was feeling better.
Yep.
It put the Band-Aid on. The bleeding stopped. And then it was okay. Now things keep coming up and that wound still gets opened.
Yeah.
Maybe now, instead of just putting a Band-Aid on it, let's go and dig in a little deeper and find out what's causing this hole to reappear in the first place.
Sure. And CBT bought you the margin to be able to do
yes,
that. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
So
certainly value there.
It has its place, and I don't want to dismiss it. It's like baby food. When you're a baby, you cannot just start with solid food. It's not going to work.
Well, it's a good place to start too. Would you think the CBT is just a little bit lighter stuff?
It is.
You're just kind of like,
it's
having
really
a bad day, or
well, it's not that it's light. It is, but it isn't. It's light because it's focused on the here and now, very much rooted in what's your present reality.
Okay.
What are you struggling with, and how are we going to get you past that? So if you're dealing with anxiety, we're going to look at anxiety. We're going to talk about what impact it's having on your life. We're going to help you look at anxiety in a different way. Change the way you think about it so that you can change the way you act. That's the crux of CBT. But that doesn't get at anything that's like, what's behind the curtain of your anxiety? Why are you anxious?
so it just gets you through that crisis, and then doesn't really dig into the.
It teaches coping skills. It fills your toolbox with great coping skills.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm very thankful for that. But after 2 or 3 therapists, that's the main approach they took. It's refreshing, but also a little scary to be with somebody that's taking a completely different approach.
Don't say refreshing. You've been bitching about it the whole time.
But it's been good.
Challenging, maybe.
Yes. But I did.
Hopeful, optimistic.
Yeah, I've identified patterns and I've identified ways that I view my life that were kind of very moments of insight for me. Like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like when I talk about my life, I tend to focus on high school and beyond. I don't talk a lot about the initial years because they weren't great. I mean, there were a lot of struggle points and things that I would like to just brush over, but I can't. And so now I need to work through those and kind of assimilate the first years of my life with the rest of my life.
That's beautiful. Are we allowed to make shameless plugs?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, super. So my husband leads a small group that he went through several times before before now he's leading it at his church, which is kind of another story.
They have 2 churches.
We have 2 churches.
Okay. That's really interesting.
So I've always wondered, what church do the kids go to? Or both?
So we have a his church and an ours church.
Okay.
The ours church started out as my church.
Gotcha.
So the kids go to ours.
Okay. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, where was I going? Oh yeah. So this group is called Journey. The curriculum is called Journey, and I really love how he says you set the table to engage with your story, and in a way that brings healing and redemption. And so, like, participants are encouraged to bring a photograph. Every person has like a 10-minute segment just to share their story, and there's definitely an encouragement to look at places of wounds and how that little wounded kid has kind of gone on to drive the bus in adulthood. And it's been hugely healing to Dan. And also, I would say he gained more insight going through this curriculum several times than he did in any of the therapy that he did, which was years of weekly therapy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
That's saying something.
It is saying something. And, I think when we come to this process of transformation, it can look so different for different people. For me, I was so allergic to the Christian-ese thing that I had to, that my path of healing was really more psychological in nature. And social justice and like really played a role in that kind of. It just was, it resonated as right and true and good and not what I'd grown up in and was feeling so, icky about. Whereas Dan's healing process was way more spiritual in nature or religious. And yet coming through to the other side, coming through the valley to the foothills, clearly God was orchestrating and facilitating that process for both of us.
That's awesome.
So I think I came full circle. I think when that reaction kind of calmed down a little bit inside of me, I was able to see and acknowledge that and come back to the fundamentals, I think, of my faith, come back to the baby without the bathwater.
Sure.
And really recognize that in my opinion, the deepest, truest, fullest healing, the best justice comes in Christ. And I really, at the end of the day, feel like we can do a lot of good apart from God. There can be a lot of healing, a lot of growth, a lot of beauty, but the real deal, the full package, the deepest, truest, fullest healing is in Christ.
That's awesome.
I feel like
Well
we're
said.
missing some huge stories. You're very smart, and I'm having trouble following you. But I'm like,
Sorry.
did you all have some trauma that you went through? Like, I need to dumb it down here a little bit.
No, I'm sorry. I just
it's
skip
good.
over
It's
that.
good stuff. But I think if I was listening, I'd be like, so where did you guys come from? Like, what is?
Sure.
I mean, you don't have to talk about it.
Yeah.
You can generalize, but. Is that what happened? Is
No. Well, I'll tell you the story. It's like I said, I'm an open book. We grew up together actually at the same church.
Okay.
And our parents will say that ours was about the closest thing to an arranged marriage on this nation. But we were babies, we hadn't grappled with our stories.
Sure.
mother had trauma in her background, and she mercifully repressed those memories until she was 50.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Really had no memory. My dad, when they first got married, said to her, "Were you ever abused?" And she racked her brain. She could think of times when her dad was inappropriate with her. He was very traumatized as a child, had bad experiences with his dad, went to war, was the only guy in his platoon that survived the Battle of the Bulge. And the only reason he survived, Germans came through and looked in his mouth for gold fillings. He didn't have any. And so they left him. If he had gold fillings, they thought he was dead. That's why they left him. Yeah, that's how, he was injured. And anyway, so he came back and was surely riddled with PTSD, couldn't sleep in the house, all this stuff. So as a father, he was kind of inadequate, I would say. And, but it was my mom's maternal grandfather who was her primary abuser. And, but those memories were repressed. My parents both grew up Methodist. My dad, country Methodist. My mom, city Methodist. So, Kyle, I'm giving you the whole story. I'll try to make it brief.
So, stories are good. People can relate to stories.
Absolutely.
Sure. So I grew up in Louis Armstrong's wonderful world because my mom didn't have any memories of this trauma. She was carrying it all in her body. And so she was kind of going from doctor to doctor as I was growing up, trying to understand what was going on there. I'm an only child. She had several miscarriages before that got too hard. And she said, forget this. So my parents were like kind and sweet and gentle. As a kid, I wondered, I would lay in my bed and think, have I just been kidnapped by the world's nicest kidnappers?
Wow.
Yeah, that was a weird thought as a kid, right? But like really this sweet, gentle upbringing. And my dad had abuse to a much lesser degree and mental health problems in his family of origin too. So then they give me this idyllic childhood and yet I was raised by two abused people. And so I learned to relate to the world as an abused person.
Sure.
And my husband's story, I kind of have to give fewer details because that is his story, but,
for sure.
But he also came into the world with wounds and, nothing horrifying or dramatic or traumatic, but wounds, I read a book on the Enneagram recently, and I really love how he said we all are raised by parents with shadows. And so we have to grapple with that. Right. Yeah. And so then we started out into our marriage and just got into bad relational patterns, codependency, and, what I would now call emotional abuse. And my husband is a beautiful guy and, had anger issues. That's the truth. And, so there was not physical violence or verbal assault, but there was emotional abuse and manipulation tactics and power dynamics that were icky. And so I'd say a decade into that, and we were working together also full time. A decade into that, a kind of a prophetic voice came into our home and got close enough and brave enough to call a spade, and that's when the shit hit the fan and things got ugly and dark. And my relationship with that prophetic voice got kind of codependent. Okay. And that was horrible for my husband, who wanted nothing more than intimacy with me emotionally and didn't know how to get it and was furious as that emotional intimacy grew between me and this prophetic voice. And so anyway, that was ugly. We started in therapy. It was the wrong therapist at first.
It's so hard to find the good one. I mean, sometimes you can go for 3 or 4 until you find it clicks.
It is. So whenever I hear couples therapy, I kind of have a little reaction because it was so awful for us.
Sure.
But thank God we hit rock bottom at a really bad vacation in October of 2015. And I thought after that, I thought that I'd have to come home and move out. But we have 4 kids, and so that was like scary and impractical. And I really love the man, and so it was just horrible, very dark. And came home, and I thought, surely now this therapist will understand what I'm dealing with. Surely now she'll understand. And I just got feedback on all the things that I was not good, or in ways in which I was not good. So I said, you know what, forget this. And actually, on my way out of that therapist's office, or while I was in the office, I got a voicemail from the person that I had reached out to, who ended up being the right therapist for me. So, so that was tricky. And, in January of 16 is when I took a break from our current, or his church, which was our church from the time we got married until that point, and said, I just need 8 weeks. I'm looking for God. I need to know if God is.
Yeah, right.
And I was just next to dead spiritually. And so that's the point at which I just was like, I wanted to look at neighborhood churches, because in the meantime, we had started to become aware of CCDA, Christian Community Development.
Yeah.
And we moved to our neighborhood not just because we got a great deal on a house. We thought we would do our 2 years, make our capital gains, and head back to something more rural, and ended up just really liking living on the west side a lot. It felt like a small town within the city to us. It's earthy, salty, working class, and it just was a really good fit for us. We ended up really liking it. But so then we learned about, like, some Christians moved to the city on purpose to, like, love their neighbors. And so we became, I guess, more purposeful about knowing our neighbors, praying for our neighbors, engaging, and became aware even of social justice issues as something that a Christian might care about. And anyhow, so when I was stepping out because of this kind of allergic reaction to the church that I was in, and just Christianity, and a lot of the Christianity that I'd grown up in, I wanted to visit, like, churches in my neighborhood where I might have tried, if we had that information when we first started looking. I wanted to try different traditions, disciplines.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I did a little bit of that for the first couple weeks, and then I stopped by City Life Church, which is on Division. It's a Wesleyan church, and
she's a Wesleyan too.
I am.
Yeah, we're not going to get into that.
Oh man. Anyhow, it was just. I say, if my heart exploded, it would look like this place.
Wow.
It felt like home, and
That's awesome.
Didn't mean to fall in love with the church. Didn't mean to stay, but I haven't left.
Yeah. There are so many good people at that church that I know
Great
of.
people. Yeah.
And it's just, yeah. And I feel the same about my church. We left and went to Oregon. That's part of our story. And I served at 2 churches out there, and then had a horrible ending at the second church, and ended up crash landing in my parents' basement in New Zealand for 9 months. That was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're living in Zealand, we're trying to find a church to call home, and just couldn't. So one Sunday we're like, Grand Rapids is only 30 minutes away. Let's go back to Berkeley. And we did. And we haven't left since. And now we live closer to the church, obviously, but
Great.
It's just such a phenomenal group of people. And I hear you. It makes all the difference.
For the first several months, I just cried and cried and cried every week. And I think it was so cleansing. In fact, I think that's a theme. People that I know who've experienced transformation have had a season of tears.
Yeah, I think that's legit.
Well, thank you for explaining that to me.
Yeah.
It's really nice to be like, okay, I kind of get the gist of
Yeah.
where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Not just someone sitting in here and just talking about that, but having the kind of the background of the
context.
story.
Yep. I also should say that the end of the story with my husband is that, he says for a whole season, his theme song was "Let It Go" from Frozen. Let it go. And he is a transformed man.
That's awesome.
Okay.
And I am a transformed woman as well. I think it's just been a process, and have had to make big changes.
Well, it's relatively new. I mean, you're giving me the
really.
timestamps. You're like, we're
Yep.
talking about 3 years.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
that's still fresh. So
it is.
I'll jump into some questions or whatever, but my wife and I kind of went through the same thing as I was broken growing up. And when we met, she just took care of me. And all of a sudden, like the last year, she's like started going to therapy herself, and now she's working on stuff. So it's been challenging.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because she would always take care of me.
Yep.
And now she's like, hey, I need to be taken care of a little bit. And so that's been hard for me because
Sure.
I'm used to being the babied one. And now
Yeah.
she's like, hey, I need to be taken care of. So it's good. You know, she took care of me, and now we're kind of transitioning, but it can be tough. We've had some fights about stuff, and
definitely.
So
there's so many give and takes in marriage.
Absolutely.
It's so hard.
Yep.
It's one of the hardest things I probably had to do.
Oh, absolutely. For sure. 100%.
Yeah.
And I think it is where I have most tasted the grace and goodness of God and the power of God to change lives.
Great.
That's awesome.
100%. Yep. If he were sitting next to me, I think, and I can just tell you from my own experience of him, every morning he goes to the side of his bed and he prays for a really long time. And so like he gets a super late start on the day, but I don't begrudge him that time at all, because I know how much surrender happens in those moments and how much the renewed, transformed person that I experience is because of those moments of like all the kibbutz and blaming and that he would have, how do I say this? Emotional discharge, right? We all don't like to sit with icky feelings. And I would in the past, I was the one to like help the icky feelings go away and the one to get blamed for the icky feelings a lot of times. And now he brings those icky feelings to Jesus, which makes all the difference.
Makes everyone's life easier.
All the difference.
Yeah. So, couple of the questions. If you take a bird's eye view of the general church in America, do you feel yourself that the church takes care of its own, or?
It's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, because I kind of grew up in a hypocritical church. You know, they talk about all this stuff, but they didn't do any of it.
Yep.
So I just wonder your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I think that the church gets a really bad rap, and a lot of it's deserved. And then a lot of what's not deserved is overlooked. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, so I too grew up in a church that was like very much a lot of head knowledge, but also this kind of Dutch West Michigan culture, very stiff, which I've learned, I think, is undergirded by fear. And that it helps me to have compassion for that, cultural way of being.
Sure.
But man, I don't want to live that way. Right.
Ooh, no.
So I think that a lot of Christians like that, have shied away from issues of social justice and getting messy in people's lives because it is messy and that's scary. Right.
Oh.
But I don't think that's the gospel. I think that people are complex and multifaceted, and our problems are really big and deep and dark, but that we have a gospel that's robust and way big enough for addressing humans as we really are. So I think that it's like cool right now to brag on or to rag on the church, not brag on her, but to rag. Yeah,
for sure.
Really, and social justice is cool.
Yeah.
But I think that there's this like fine line or attention or like I've seen friends kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater because it's cool right now to bash the church and elevate social justice. But I think that we're missing something really important when we do that. First of all, I want to say that so much of social justice, so much of the good things, the progress that has happened has been undergirded by men and women of faith who are propelled because of their relationship with Christ to do what they do in loving people. But I lost my train of thought.
It's somewhere on those papers of yours.
Yeah, right. I just get back on track. Well, so much of what's good has been done by people of faith. It's gone.
That's all right.
Ask me another question.
It happens.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the show, Threads Life Unfiltered. Just real quick, we have a Facebook page and a website. Our website is threadspodcast.com. And our Facebook page is Threads Podcast. You can also search Threads Life Unfiltered. The website is going to have all our episodes there. You can click on and play them or go to the Podbean app. The Facebook page, again, will have all our episodes, but we'll be engaging with you guys, asking questions and getting feedback about the podcast. All right, thanks. Back to the show.
Well, we talked about taking care of their own. So there's a distinction here. I think sometimes churches can be very good at taking care of their own, or they can be very bad at taking care of their own. I find it interesting. You don't see a church very often that does both well. You see either they do one really well and they struggle in the other one, or they take super good care of their people, but if you're outside the church, you don't matter.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about codependency, and I think we see codependency all the time in the church. And, oh man, I mean, like, talk about threads. My mind is just weaving.
That's why sometimes we just get off topic. Like,
yeah,
we
and
try
that's okay.
And that's okay, because sometimes it brings up some of the best conversations.
Sure. So I think codependence in the church can very much look like, we're going to save the neighborhood. We're going to save the world. We're going to save Africa. We're going to save all these people. And then you can be like, that's a codependent thing. You all burn out because you're giving, I don't know, on empty.
Right.
Or giving, actually, here it is. It's giving really with selfish motives and that's what codependency is, right? I'm going to make sure you're okay because I don't feel okay unless you're okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I think so much of the good work, quotes, good work that's done by the church or coming out of the church is really done out of codependency, not out of lives that are overflowing with joy because they have experienced and tasted God.
Wow. Yeah.
So that can be an unhealthy outward focus, right? But I think there can also be an unhealthy inward focus. I've just read this book called, Winning on Purpose, that was challenged its readers that the nature of the church is to tend inward, to take care of its own, unless we're really, really intentional to prioritize outward focus. But I think that take care of your own can be kind of this Midwest cultural value on the right to pursue happiness, and it's a hedonistic thing, right? That I've paid my dues and I've been a founding member, and I have the right to be happy in worship. And that's like totally missing the point too, right?
Sure.
So taking care of your own is not making sure everybody's happy who's sitting in the pews paying the bills, really. And so do you hear what I'm saying? There's these two extremes that you can do either the wrong way, or you can do both based and rooted in love and in the power and energy of God.
Well, what does it mean then, taking care of your own? Like that question is like, is the church known for taking care of their own? Does that mean like just the people that go to church, or does that mean your own neighborhood? Like, that's what I want to kind of, what exactly does that mean? Is it the people that go to church or the neighborhood?
Right. And that also begs the question, what is taking care of, right? Like, are we talking about physical needs? Are we talking about housing? Are we talking about employment, transportation, food? Are we talking about emotional, spiritual needs? Like, what is the role of the church?
Well, you brought up like people going to Africa and all that stuff. So it makes me always think like, what are we doing in our the neighborhood community? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, they need help too. But if there's people that are struggling that like the next block over, what is the point of going to Africa?
Yes.
I don't know.
I'm with you 100% on that. Yes. I think sometimes we skip over this neighborhood around us because it's almost like too intimidating, and it's easier to like send money.
Yeah.
Or send
sure.
send the nice little couple who has soft heart. We just don't want to get messy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think we sit in church and we're like, yeah, everyone else is just like us. Like, everyone else is cool. So I don't need to worry. Let's just go to Africa, which I'm cool with too. I've done 2 mission trips to Mexico and it's needed. It definitely is needed. But I would rather focus on people in the community.
Right.
And again, it might sound cold-hearted. It's not. I want to help everyone, but I mean, you kind of got to help yourself, your community first, and then, if those needs are met, then let's try to go elsewhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think within the church, taking care of your own means, because the church is a religious institution, of course there has to be a priority on taking care of people's souls, but we're whole beings. So like a person sitting in the pew starving is not going to be able to, if we're thinking about Maslow's hierarchy, is not going to be able to like go there in their soul.
Right.
To some of those deep places. Like, get the guy a loaf of bread and then we can talk, right? I'm reminded of James, that pure religion, which is undefiled before God and the Father, is this: to love, right? The people, real live people who are
the orphan
suffering.
and the widow.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I mean, that was a very influential verse that played into Andy and I's decision to be foster parents and eventually adoptive parents. That's the crux of what Christianity should be about. I don't want to should on everybody. And my therapist says should is a dangerous word.
Oh, yeah.
But that is what the church is meant to be. And so often we lose sight of that. Well, how about your church on an individual level at City Life? How does your church do with taking care of their own?
I love my church, so I feel very taken care of there.
Yeah, sure.
But coming again from this like Dutch West Michigan independent background, like you just keep your needs private, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really surprised early on. I sat down with my pastor. We have a co-pastor husband-wife team, and I sat down with the wife, and I just really wanted to say, "Is this place for real?" And she ended up pastoring me, and I'd been so craving the feeling of pastoral care, but I really expected it to come from a 50-year-old man.
Sure.
And so it took me by surprise when it came from this kind of pure like woman. And I've been thinking about that. What is pastoral care? And I think that it's receiving one another's stories, accepting and embracing one another in those vulnerable moments of sharing story, and then pointing to Jesus, pointing to redemption, pointing forward, pointing to more, and saying that more is possible, and encouraging others toward that more without the shoulds and without the shame and guilt and fear. So I feel really nourished and cared for there. I know, like I brought some of our core practices. Our mission statement is to manifest God's kingdom now as we call out disciples and renew our neighborhoods. So there's that balance of renewing our neighborhoods is focused on the immediate community surrounding our church. And then calling out disciples happens not only within our community, but certainly within the congregation itself. But I love some of their dream statements. We have a dream for a church of many ethnicities where people worship together, pray together, work together, dream together, eat together. We have a dream of church leadership team consisting of men and women of both majority and minority cultures. We have a dream where we disciple the middle class to curb consumption and thoughtfully help those in need. One of my favorite ones actually has to do with mental health. Where is that? Well, one of our mission or dream statements. Oh, here we are. We have a dream for a church where the mentally ill find wholeness and community, and where others find community with the mentally ill.
So these things are written into this is our church.
That's who we are.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's been my experience. Oh man, yeah, it's been our experience.
Is that a pretty diverse church?
Trying to be, always trying to be.
Where is it?
On Division, just
You've
south of
passed
Wealthy.
it many times. Oh, Ubering.
Oh, and it's trying to be diverse.
Yeah,
And it's kind of right in the thick of things.
yeah,
So
it is. Certainly, there's one of everybody there.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And it's interesting to note that Sam, who was a previous guest on our show, that is where her family attends. And yeah, small world, I guess.
Yeah.
So let's see. We've kind of hit on that one. I'm going to skip yours. Sorry, Jason.
I don't care.
Here's a quote that I have heard, and this is one that I shared on another episode. I have this working archive of Threads episodes, and I can go back and remember what we talked about, who we talked about, etc.
I cannot.
And then there's Jason. He's like, how'd you do that?
He pulls it out of somewhere. I'm like,
So, Jason, you're going to be the therapist with a notepad, and you're going to be the therapist that sits without a notepad.
right.
Right, exactly. So this is a quote that there's debate on who actually said it. It's been attributed to Augustine, but it's not for sure actually who said it. And it's a pretty harsh statement, but I like it. And I think it opens the door to a lot of good conversation. So the quote goes like this: "The church may be a whore, but she's my mother." And as I think about the American church and the things that the American church in general has prioritized, whether that's attracting big crowds or having the latest technology or having young pastors that are hip and cool, or having a fair trade coffee shop or a green initiative in their church. Like, the church in America has the tendency to whore itself out to so many different things that for some reason they matter to the church when they probably shouldn't. And in doing that, we move away from being, like this beautiful bride of Christ that the church was intended to be. And our attention gets so diverted to all these different pursuits that at the end of the day, who cares if you have a coffee stand or not? Who cares if, there's stage lighting, or who cares if it's a millennial? Like, why do all these things matter? And why do we get so up in arms about all these little details?
Well, I think it matters because everyone in the church administration has their own agenda. I mean, let's face it. No matter if you love, you're there for a purpose. Everyone wants the fair trade coffee. But that's where the whole committee, I mean, I don't know. Does every church have a committee and a board?
I think so.
Like ours does. That's where I feel like the committee needs to come in and say, really, why are we focusing on this fair trade coffee? The budget's going here, blah, blah, blah. So I think everyone's it's going to happen in a church. You're going to have that stuff, but that's where the whole community or the committees be like, yo, bring it back. But that's just my 2 cents on that.
I really appreciate what you just said about agenda. I think that's so true, but it's not the way it's meant to be.
No, but that's human nature.
Okay, but I got to tell you, I'm pretty excited about this. So the work that we do at UTM together, Ben, is good work, and is so increasingly informed by that I just recently joined the board at my church. And so, like the book that I was referencing, which is hopefully guiding our work at UTM, it was mandatory reading for joining the board at my church. So I just did my first meeting there, and I've got to tell you about it because it was pretty awesome. We prayed. That was the whole agenda for the meeting. There was a few small items that we had to take care of, voting, business, this and that.
Sure.
This was at church?
This is the church board.
The board, okay.
The board at church. The whole agenda was to catch the heart of God and to listen to God. So we spent extended time on the roof of our church at sunset, looking over the city, praying.
Wow.
And all of us with pen and paper in hand. And then we spent the next several moments, I don't know, maybe even an hour, just saying, okay, what did you sense the Spirit of God saying to us as a group? What did you sense? What did you sense? And I tell you what, we sought God's heart, and we had a unified sense of God's heart on 4 distinct topics, and none of us came in. I don't think came in with an agenda. And if that was somebody's agenda, I don't think it was. I just think it felt like a process of discovery, and I felt feeling first of all so grateful to be a part of a church that says that God is our king and then acts like it, right?
Yeah.
That we show up and say, okay, God, if you're the king, what's on your agenda?
Yeah.
Right?
How scary, though. I mean, it can be scary. I mean, to just throw your agenda and plan out the window and just say, okay, God, speak to us.
We'll do what you have in mind. Okay, which comes back to power dynamics and relinquishing control. So we've talked about codependency in a marriage, same dynamic, right?
Yeah.
It's saying, I'm going to relinquish my control over you. That what you do and what you feel is not going to determine what I do and what I feel, because we're individuals, and because I'm okay apart from you.
So I'm just curious. I'm all back to the committee meeting. I think that's amazing. I'd be curious if that happens anywhere else. But during that, did you guys pray out loud, or was it just silent?
Yeah. So the first 20 minutes or something of prayer time was out loud.
Okay.
Just kind of like popcorn prayers as you.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
And then, yeah.
Yeah. It's just interesting because
I'm
I'm a part of a committee, Young Lives. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's for teen moms.
Oh, cool.
It's a branch of Young Life.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, we don't ever do that.
Yeah. That was totally new for me too.
Yeah, I'm like, we pray at the beginning, and then we get down to business and we get it done, and then we leave, pray and leave. But that's interesting. I don't know. I'd be a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. See, that's the kind of thing that I
let it go.
love.
Let it go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ben.
No, that's fine. That's a great song. I think we might get copyright pinged.
No, sorry.
No.
Just kidding. No, but that's the kind of thing that was kind of the hallmark of my ministry days. And part of the reason why it wasn't a good fit at the second church I ended up at, I found myself in a very Baptist, conservative I mean, it was so conservative that the denomination was conservative Baptist. I should have known better. Anyway.
Hindsight.
I just should on myself again. I do that a lot.
What?
Should I'm in therapy or something.
Yeah. You're not supposed to. I've never really heard that. I know it's a terrible word.
Don't when should on me.
Well, yeah, when you're talking to your spouse, you should have done that. Well, that's not a good thing to say.
Well, it's the same thing with yourself, though, because in life, sure, I could have, made a more informed decision. But that's not what happened. And instead of shaming myself with I should have done that or I should have done this, it's choosing to look at it as, yeah, that was probably incorrect thinking, but it's okay. Given the circumstances and what I knew of the situation then, I made the best decision that I could in that moment.
The should have can be good motivator to move on to other things. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's completely bad, but that's another topic for another day. But
see, that's what makes us so good together, because we see things differently.
Yep.
But anyway, at that church, there was such a value for order and agenda and programs. And this is how you do youth group. This is how you do youth events or retreats. And it was to the point where it was almost like there wasn't any freedom for God to just show up and do his thing.
Yep.
And that's kind of how I rolled in my first job. And it worked really well there. It was a country church in Elmira, Oregon. And everybody there was so open to we're just going to sit in silence and we're going to listen and we're going to write in journals. And it was so formative for them. And I've kept in touch with some students from that youth group, and their faith is just blossoming still.
That's awesome.
They didn't walk away from it. And there are also a handful of students from the second church that I still keep in touch with. And this summer I put a picture of my son and I kayaking and captioned it with a quote that I had shared with the youth group. And one of my youth group girls from back in the day commented and was like, I remember you sharing that with us, and it stayed with me all these years. And there's just such I don't know, it was such a different place at the second church, because there wasn't that freedom for God to move. It was God's going to move, but he's going to move according to our structure. And like board
on
meetings
Tuesday at 9 a.m.
Yes. It felt like that. And so it just wasn't a good fit for me. I tried to stick it out. I tried so hard, and it became I'm going to prove you that I'm right and you're wrong. And that's not the right approach either. So it came to a screeching halt, and it was pretty devastating and life altering, but we survived. So I'm not even sure where I was going to go with that.
Yeah, I was going back to that quote. I don't know if we got your response on that. We got completely sidetracked.
Yeah, right.
The church may be a whore, but she's my mother. What is your thoughts on that?
I think we talked about the first part. The church is a whore. That,
we talked about the whore part, just not the mother part.
Let's just say it again, whore.
Well, it's funny because this reminds me of like my mother. Not that she was a whore, but I mean, she was my abuser. But then it says, but she's my mother. I don't look at it like that. I don't really love my mom, and it's hard. And people might be like, "Oh, you're a piece of crap." Yeah, I'm like, I mean, I forgave her, but I mean, I feel like this statement is kind of where I'm at. She was terrible, but then the next part is, but she's my mother, so we still should love her. That's where the words I feel like we should still love our mother, even though she was a whore.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Yeah, that's really good. Go for it.
Now I might get too personal.
No, please.
At what point were you okay with not loving her?
It's been very recent. She, in the last 2 years, she's been in a assisted living home. She has dementia, Alzheimer's, and she's like 65, so she's really young. And I've started feeling a little guilty. She's like one street over from where I live, like on Wilson, and I don't go visit her. And so I'm just like, that's kind of where I came to be like, I just don't love you. You know, I know you're my mom, and I'll, on Easter and whatever, but I often wonder what people think about me because I don't. You know what I mean? But that's where I'm at. I'm like, you did this. I forgive you. I guess I shouldn't say I don't love her, but I mean, it's just kind of like, whatever.
It's not like an active relational love.
No, I mean, and I feel so guilty about that. It's just like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to explain, like,
there's a dissonance inside of you about that.
Yeah, but I'm feeling so guilty about it. Like, I should I should go and visit her, and because my middle sister is the exact opposite. Oh, mom, blah, blah, and I'm getting completely
sidetracked. Was she
sidetracked.
abused too?
Oh yeah, we all were.
Okay.
But it's just tough for me to do that. So that Ben first read that, I'm like, oh man, my wheels are turning.
Yeah,
that's probably I missed what she said at the beginning because I was like, that's kind of like my mom, and maybe I'm off base by that. But
no, but I think our experience with our mother really shapes how you respond to that quote
for sure.
Because when I first read that quote, that wasn't. I totally see where you're coming from, and I'm not dismissing it.
No, I know,
but it's different for me because I looked at it, and my mom has always been my rock. Like, my dad and I had our struggles growing up. Boy, did we have our struggles. He never understood me the way I wanted him to understand me. He never saw me the way I wanted him to see me. I was never... Growing up, I don't want to talk adult years, but growing up years, it felt like I just wasn't what he hoped for out of his middle son. But my mom...
Go ahead.
Sorry. But my mom was always my rock, and she's always been like my biggest supporter, other than my wife, of course. And in fact, she might even be listening now. She listened to Andy and I's episode and had really positive feedback. So when I read that quote, I thought of the church. Yes, the church can be a whore. And the church, not just as the leaders of the church, but let's be honest, me, I put other things above church. I pursue other things. I live in a way that's not in accordance with who I am Sunday morning at church. My Monday through Saturday, there's moments that I really regret. And there's things that I do and say that I whore myself out, as a part of the church. But then that second quote is what just really grips me, that even though all those things are true, the church is like my mother. And she's a rock. The church is the place I go to for support and encouragement and when I need to be lifted up. So despite the fact that, yes, the church has its flaws, and boy, does it, but it's also a place of healing and solace. And so it's like this balance, being able to see it for its flaws, but also being able to see it as the source of hope in the world.
Interesting. I think it's pretty fascinating how our experiences shape even our perception of this
quote.
Quote.
For sure.
And I was going to say too that it doesn't have to be, but she is my mother. You could be, she is my father. You know what I mean? It really doesn't matter what that says. He was talking about his struggles with his dad. You can kind of look at it and be like, but anyways. But yeah, that is interesting.
Because when I heard it, I was thinking about how a kid, from my experience of the kids that I've known, at the end of the day, they really want to be connected to their mom.
Yeah.
And I totally get where you're coming from too. And I think it's normal and natural to feel the way that you do, and probably even healthy.
Oh yeah, I think it's way healthier than the way my sister is reacting to it. Completely different.
But I think that, like, if we look at attachment theory, that that initial bond with our primary caregiver, it is so formative. it so affects our future relationships and how we relate to people and the world that that at the end of the day, even recognizing what your mom is, you want her to be someone you can love and trust and lean into and get what you need from. And, you know, I think about a little neighbor girl whose mom was incarcerated for drunk driving, I think, and kind of in and out. And like this little girl kept saying, well, my mom's going to get out and we're going to have a big birthday party at a hotel and you're invited. And I ended up throwing her the birthday party.
Oh.
And the mom came, and you know what? She is lovable. Like, this mom is a really nice lady who has shadows like we all do, right? I mean, this little girl wanted so much for her mom to be everything that she needed and deserved.
Yeah.
And so I think that when we're disillusioned by that in the context of the church, it can be easy to be dismissive and say the church is a whore and I'm cool, I'm into social justice, and I like craft beer, and I'm not picking on people who say this,
right?
But I am saying, like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yes, there's a lot of junk that's happened in the North American church,
Absolutely,
but love her back to health, because there's still a lot of beauty, inherently potential in the church. And the church isn't going to get any prettier if we all vanish from her, right?
Yes. Right.
What's your thought on the Catholic Church with all the sex abuse? You bring up, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
There's been a few people in my life that are like, why? I say, or they have just some discussion. They've said, why do you still go to, with all this abuse? Why do you support the church? And he brought up, well, it's these individuals that are doing it. It's not the church itself. Why would I hate Catholicism because of these priests? But it's kind of that same thing. You're like, ooh, what do we do here? Do we leave the church? Do we, I don't know.
That is a catch-22. It reminds me of the question of, should we still listen to Michael Jackson, right? Like,
I know. So what's your opinion on that?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean,
so I go round and round with people on this because it pisses me off, because he never was convicted. I'm not saying he didn't, but I like Michael Jackson, okay? Was he a weirdo? Yeah. Did he have a terrible childhood? Yeah. Do I know if he did anything with kids? No, I don't. Why do I have to be the judge? Let's let God be the judge.
Sure.
Now, if he went to court and it was proven, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of musician, who's the R. Kelly? Okay. Nope. His music needs to go. I don't know if you know anything about R. Kelly with underage girls and like he's in some, that's been proven. So that's a little different, but
sure. And he's alive. That's another thing. I think critical difference.
I don't know. I'm going to make a statement. I love Michael Jackson. I love his music. So
yeah. All right.
Did you know I have something in common with Michael Jackson?
What?
Birthday?
That's what my guess was too.
My skin condition.
Oh, yeah.
That's why he bleached his skin.
I know.
So interesting.
I have
among
vitiligo.
other reasons.
Yeah, right.
Right.
But yeah, it's funny because I ran into somebody at the guys meetup event after church. We had like hundreds of pounds of smoked meat.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
For the guys. I should have invited you. Sorry.
Rude.
But it was amazing. But me and my introverted self found myself having to go mingle and talk to people. And so I'm kind of awkward. So I just,
God, and what I know you so well, you must have wanted just to be like, I would rather be throwing up right now.
It was rough.
Because at least I'd be by myself.
Like I saw my wife and kids get into Andy's car and take off, and I'm just
shed a tear.
See you later. Pray for me. This is so outside of my norm.
Well, I'm glad that you went.
Oh, I'm sorry. Women's ministry and men's ministry makes me want to gag. Throw up.
Yeah, but it was really a really positive event.
Good.
Despite my own feelings.
I hope someone brought salad too.
No salad.
Well, if it's Christian Reform, it's bun on or ham on bun.
Right. Yeah. I think the closest thing to salad was macaroni and cheese.
Oh, that's great.
So.
The salad's reserved for women's ministry.
I guess so.
So as we kind of draw towards the end, and we don't have to end now, but kind of the stuff that we have, one of the questions that Ben wrote, and I'm sure you have an answer to, if Jesus were to walk into a typical American church, how would he be treated? Now, is it the question that you write? Is it the Jesus that is portrayed with the long hair and the robe?
Oh, that's a story.
Right.
So we're reading this book, God Guides, as a family, real slowly, but it's these wonderful stories of a missionary in India whose ministry is transformed by learning to listen to God, right? And so she teaches everyone in her sphere of influence to listen to God. So we'll read a little story, and then we set a timer as a family. And like I said, I've got 14 down to 6. We set a timer as a family for 2 minutes.
Wow.
And practice listening to God. And it's so fun. Like, I mean, my littlest one just hears like this sounds on the street, and we've had some really profound experiences where, I mean, just really cool stuff has happened.
So you sit at the table, and then it's like for 2 minutes, you just
we're silent. We just listen to God in silence.
That's an eternity.
Yeah, right. That's why we started 2 minutes. Yeah. So then afterward, we debrief. And recently, my 8-year-old, who is my only son, said, Mom, when I hear God speak, it's always like the Jesus in the storybook where he's got his arms out like this.
The light coming down.
Yeah,
from the
and
sky.
he's got a big beard.
Yeah.
Oh, that was pretty cute that he pictures that Jesus. Not who I picture.
Yeah, right.
I don't know who I picture, but yeah, I don't know if I guess for me, if he would have walked in church like that, I'd be like,
yeah, what's up with that guy?
You're dirty.
Okay, so I would say that I have the privilege of being in a not ordinary church when it comes to that. I thought right away again of James, where James writes about like, if this fancy guy walks in and you show him preference, like that's no good. And if you're shuffling the kind of oddball off to the corner, well, we got a lot of oddballs at our church, and they're celebrated. We all are celebrated.
That's great.
I count myself among the oddballs, and stinky people and people who do uncouth things in the middle of the sermon, like just like I said, one of everybody. So I feel privileged and fortunate to be in a church that I think reflects the heart of God well in that way. However, I have been in an experience at a church which shall remain nameless, where someone in one of my more fragile moments of life said, "Hey, Megan, how are you?" And I kind of spontaneously combusted into tears, and he was so uncomfortable that he sort of stiffened up and kind of patted me on the back, like I had like I had the plague, and sort of exited from that communication as quickly as possible. So I think that unfortunately can be many people's experience of the church, and that makes me sad. I don't think it reflects the heart of God.
Yeah.
That's such a good story. I wonder, I don't think that would happen in our church. I think if somebody busted out, like there would be people, like 10 people around them.
Great.
I mean,
it's great.
not that I would want that, because I'd be like, but it's interesting that to go to a church like that, because I grew up CRC, so I've been to churches where that would be like, "Oh, you're okay."
Yeah, right. Where's the nearest rug and broom?
Yeah, sweep it under quick.
Right. No kidding. Wow, I had something so good. Oh, yes. You had said something about all the people, regardless of their stinky or how they're dressed. I love what's happening in my church, and I love that families are being transformed, and men are being transformed, and children and women, and it's across the board. One thing I struggle with is that as I'm at this event and as I'm in the church building for the service, I look out and I see people like me, middle class and up, white, predominantly white. We're growing in that regard, which is good to see, because I have a daughter who is not white, and it makes all the difference for her to see mirrors on stage.
Absolutely.
But
that's
still,
like a neurological thing, by the way. That's really cool.
Yes. But still, everybody, for the most part, is middle class and up. And we have some pretty well-off people in our church. And as I'm standing at the men's event, trying to figure out who to go mingle with next, I just look around and I'm seeing Patagonia. I'm seeing all these like pricey clothes and shoes, and everybody's like, it was like walking into an Abercrombie magazine almost. And a part of me is like, if Jesus showed up now, he would probably be an outcast because he wouldn't be dressed like that, and his feet would be dirty, and he'd probably stink. And as I'm looking around, I see people that kind of fit that description, and they're alone. And so I would try to go be with them and talk with them. But yeah, I mean, whether it was the guy in the wheelchair or the guy who didn't look like he showered today, that was just chilling watching the Lions game. I mean, there were a few that were just off in the corner, and I feel like that's where Christ would be. And how are you feeling about playing music clips?
I don't have I mean, I guess I can, but
It wouldn't be that hard, is it?
no, I could pull it out.
Because it goes so perfectly with this line of conversation we're in right now.
Ah, Ben.
I'm
I
sorry.
hope we don't get kicked off.
Well, play it in 30-second increments.
I'm not going to play 30 and then stop and then play 30. So do you want to put a background behind this before I...
Yeah. Well, we kind of already did. This song is by Todd Agnew. Have you heard of him before? You may have heard the song. It's My Jesus. You'll probably hear it when you'll probably click. But the whole premise of the song is taking a look at who Jesus is illustrated to be in the children books or wherever else. And it's just not super accurate. It's not the Jesus of the Bible. You know, the Jesus of the Bible went to the broken, to the sinful, to the, people that were not top society, that did not come out of an Abercrombie magazine. He went to the people that were on the polar opposite of that end. And that's the Jesus that we serve. The Jesus that he was social justice. He embodied it. And I think we need to reflect on that. And I think this song does a good job of helping us do that.
So I don't know how loud this is going to be, so bear with me when I clip it. So, and it didn't load. Oops.
Pretty blue eyes and curly brown hair and a clear complexion is how you see him as he dies for your sins. But the word says he was battered and scarred. Did you miss that part? Sometimes I doubt we'd recognize him. 'Cause my Jesus bled and died. He spent his time with thieves and the least of these. He loved the poor and the cost and the comfortable. So which one do you want to be? 'Cause my Jesus would never be accepted in my church. The blood and dirt on his feet might stain the carpet, but he reaches for the hurting and despises the proud. And I think he'd prefer Beale Street to the stained glass crowd. And I know that he can't hear me if I cry out loud. I wanna be like my Jesus.
Did you pull that clip?
I did.
You even faded it out in the end.
Yeah.
I'm so
Well
proud of you.
done. Nice. That's beautiful.
So that, again, I want to give credit where credit is due. Todd Agnew is the name of the artist. We'll put a link in show notes and all that good stuff. And the song is called My Jesus. You can find it on Spotify. And I'm feeling okay about using it because it falls under the fair use.
Yeah, that
copyright
doesn't work
laws.
with YouTube and Facebook.
I
We'll
know,
see what
right?
happens.
I think we're still on, though. So that's
Yeah,
good
we are
news.
still on. I don't know about
All right.
YouTube, but yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there's weird things with broadcasting. I get it. They've worked for it, but,
Yeah.
and there's not really any rules with podcasting yet. So if you're just audio, you can play whatever you want and they
Wow.
can't do anything. It's probably coming down. Is it the pipe or the
Yeah,
pike
sure.
or whatever
Yeah.
at some point? But I didn't really like that song.
Really?
Ben and I have polar opposites in music. I had a little trouble hearing the lyrics, but what are your thoughts on it?
Thoughts on it? I think it was fine.
Well, let's let Ben break down why he did. I mean, I don't know. What was the point of this?
What was the point? I just love the song. I feel like it jives with who I want to be and how I want Christ to be presented and how I want Christ or how I want to present Christ in my life. Not as somebody that's, that pretty blue-eyed, long-haired, bearded man. That's not him.
Yeah.
Jesus was gritty. He hung around with thieves and liars and purposely chose to be with them instead of people like me and sought those people out. And he wasn't afraid of people's brokenness and messes.
I was gonna say, what you were saying, like, I don't think Jesus isn't gonna walk into church. He's not gonna walk into church. He's gonna be down at the homeless shelter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you talked about all the preppy clothes and everything. I'm like, we're not gonna have to see him in church. I think he's just gonna be hanging out, just like you said, down with the lepers and, well, no, we don't have lepers anymore, but people with diseases and all that stuff. So that's my thought on it. What were you gonna say?
Interesting. I'm just taking it in.
I know. It's so much. You get done with these podcasts and you're just like,
your mind.
okay, I need another 6 hours.
Right,
Okay. Can I
right.
come back in a month and we can break down more stuff?
Yeah, that's so good. I guess I think I hear me and we. Like, why wouldn't Jesus hang out with you, Ben? Of course Jesus would want to hang out with you. And I think, well, I hope he'd come to church. I want Jesus to come to my church.
Yeah.
And somebody told me a cute little story about that. I can't remember. It was like their little kid saw a picture of the Sunday school Jesus or heard a story about Jesus and, I know him. He goes to my church.
Oh.
And I thought, that's great. That's what I want us all to be able to say. I know him.
right.
He goes to my church. But
Maybe it is both.
Well,
It's me and
my
we.
question
Well-
for all three of us, if he would walk into your church, do you think he would be cool with what's going on? Or would
I
be
think
like,
that's an excellent question.
whoa, what is going on here?
Right. I think that's an excellent question. I also think it's easy for me to identify with the salty, the broken, the down and out, the whatever, and kind of have a prejudice against the middle class and the
sure.
upper class. Now, what I love about the down and outer is that what I love about the West Side, I'll say, because that's so representative to me of urban. The West Side has a unique flavor, but what I love about my neighborhood and being in a working to lower income area is there's just less makeup, right? Disguising our brokenness. And we were just a part of a small group where pretty much every member of the small group was in recovery or a returning citizen from incarceration. And what I love about that demographic is that they're grappling with their stories, right? They have fantastic language for understanding how they got to where they are and the steps you have to take to get out of brokenness and to recover. I think that we're all in recovery, right? We're all in recovery from sin, which is really just coping mechanisms, employing coping mechanisms to deal with the hurt and brokenness of life apart from God. And some of those are more harmful than others. Some of those are more visible than others. And some of those are more socially acceptable than others.
Sure.
But we're all in recovery. I mean, ideally, those of us who are going to die trying,
Yes.
if that's our goal,
Yes.
then we're going to die in recovery from
Yeah.
something.
We're
right?
not just sweeping this under the rug like so
Absolutely.
many of our childhood churches would try to.
Right. And I think that the middle class just has a lot more, margin and money for masking the hurts and broken places in our souls. And so, I don't like that. That's really uncomfortable to me. But I think Jesus loves all of us in our brokenness, right? Whether we're, being honest about that and messy about it, if it's splatted all over everywhere, if it's pajamas at 2 p.m. at Meijer, or the opposite end of the spectrum where, I mean, you really have to have compassion for somebody who has no idea that they're broken and hurting because the makeup is so thick that they can't even see it.
Yeah, that was really good. This has been a fun episode.
Yeah, I feel, again, we'll have to have you come back. I don't know.
I would love that.
I like the randomness of it. I mean,
we should bring Brandy and Megan on one episode. That'd be a lot of fun.
Man. Two deep thinkers.
Yeah.
Really.
You would really enjoy Brandy.
Because I feel like are you like a free spirit?
I don't know.
Yeah, I was just curious because
uptight.
I'm super type A. Like even Ben today, do you want a format? Does this look good? I'm like, you know what? It's your guest. I will. But normally I'm like, I need things. Not to say we have to hit on them all, but just in case there's like dead air, we're just like, so.
Ben knows me well enough to know there wouldn't be dead air.
Yes. But anyways, Brandy's really free spirited and cool. Just a deep thinker about church and those kind of things. But
that'd be a ton of fun.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we would just probably sit in the corner and you guys can just talk back and forth.
Sounds good. You'll have to give me your number. I would love to revisit one thing that we've talked about, which was agenda. And I think I just read the story of Corrie ten Boom, and for those of you who are not familiar with her story, she was a Dutch believer during World War II and hid Jews in her home, and then was taken into captivity and ended up in a concentration camp in Germany. And she, with her sister, and she gives her sister a lot of the credit, but the depth of surrender to God that she experienced and endured and grew joy in was phenomenal, just phenomenal. And it's been really challenging to me to take another swipe at relinquishing control in my life. And I think when we look at codependency in a marriage, when we look at all of the isms in life, racism and sexism and just all of the atrocities that social justice seeks to address, I think at the end of the day, and the church, both as a whore and as our mother, all of these topics, what they have in common is that independence from God and our own agenda, and the antithesis to that is surrender, and that we don't follow. So we can follow get caught up in following a movement,
right? A
political agenda, a social agenda, whatever. But at the end of the day, I want to follow a person, a live Redeemer, and I think He cares about those issues, and I think He will lead me into relationship with my neighbor. He will lead me into places where I have no idea. I'd be afraid to go if I knew where we were heading. But at the end of the day, I want to have that kind of surrender to the cornerstone of the church, and the husband of the church, Christ.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Megan, thank you so much for talking, and I was a little unsure on this one. But I do appreciate it. It was a good time.
Likewise.
And
good to meet you.
We'll have to do it again. So
thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
See you later.